Hello and welcome to Airheads, a not-so-serious look at the serious business of royal rumours, gossip and gowns. I'm Tom.
And I'm Maeve.
And we're going to be looking back at our standout moments of 2020 in royal watching.
It's our first full year of podcasting. So last year when we talked about this, we mainly used it as an opportunity to talk about Prince Philip's car crash.
Yeah, which annoyingly happened before we started the podcast.
But now we've got 12 whole months to look back on from this nightmare year.
Yeah.
For our first, we have to start with the earth-shattering news of January 8th, 2020, that Harry and Meghan announced their intention to step back as senior members of the royal family and work to become financially independent. Do you remember this day, Tom?
I'll never forget it. I'll never forget the moment that we saw the refreshed and updated SussexRoyal.com. It was no longer just a landing page, but it was a full site. We were in John Lewis looking at swivel chairs.
Oh, I got that push notification on Instagram.
And we immediately ran home to record an emergency episode. Meghan's mic drop, if you haven't listened to it.
Yeah, I never want to listen to that again because I'm sure I sound like completely manic. The adrenaline surge was something else.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, we all know how this has played out, and we are going to talk more about the year in Harry and Meghan in March when it comes up to the annual review. So don't worry, we'll have a lot to say on their media strategy and Archwell and the Battle of the 16 Bathrooms when we almost wanted to stop doing a podcast. But at that moment, I felt like we were just so excited and so happy for them.
Yeah, it seemed like such a major move, like really decisive. And at that point, like, you know, as we have for most of the time, really, we were so rooting for Harry and Meghan against all the other royals who, like, just had created such a toxic environment for them. And we were like, yes, get out.
Yeah. And I do think, like, now I am still confident that they have made the right decision.
Yeah.
And I am happy for them that they are away from the monstrous institution of the monarchy.
Yeah.
But at the same time, my feelings have changed a little bit. I'm sure you feel the same way.
Yeah. There is a sadness mixed in there for, like, a lot of reasons. Like you said, happy for them to be away from, you know, not only the toxic royals, but also the kind of racist elements of the British press who, I mean, they still are kind of at it, but at least they're at a further remove. But I'm sad that they have lost stuff along the way, like in particular Harry's military appointments that I know were like really kind of dear to him, like very close to his heart. And we've heard that it was like very emotional for him to have to say goodbye to that. And I did see that as like very petty kind of point scoring on the part of the rest of the firm.
Yeah, definitely. And I think we learned from those big royal biographies this year, Finding Freedom and Battle of Brothers, that Harry and Meghan's haste may not have done them any favours, and the rush to launch the Sussex Royal website might have been a contributing factor in them not getting everything they wanted in that, or the original half-in, half-out deal that they had proposed.
Yeah.
Maybe if they had slowed down, they could have reached more of a compromise. And I'm saying that as that seems to be what they wanted. I think it's a great thing that they're totally out, and I would hope that they're happy with that as well.
Yeah. I was also sad, like, not just for them, for some of the things that they lost, but also sad for us as royal watchers in the UK, because we're now, like, on a different time zone to them, and we don't get to see them, like, oh, that's somewhere that's, like, around the corner from where I used to live, or, you know, like, there's a big part that's kind of, like, lost. Like, I am still interested in what they're doing in LA, and they do some like really cool stuff, but it doesn't have that like extra kind of treat of being recognizable geographically to me. But the second big moment has got to be Gloria Allred's bus stunt just before Prince Andrew's 60th birthday.
This had to be one of the most thrilling royal moments of the year for me. Seeing the photos of a bright yellow American-style school bus driving up the Mall outside Buckingham Palace with a huge blue poster across it printed with Prince Andrew's face.
Twice.
And the message, if you see this man, please ask him to call the FBI to answer their questions, along with the phone number and the website for Gloria Allred, the US lawyer who's representing 5 of Jeffrey Epstein's victims, was just a spectacular move.
I know. It's something that, like, now, all these months later, it not only really stands out from what has been, like, a very chaotic time for Prince Andrew and all of this kind of mess that he's created, but also it just seems like almost a moment from a film or TV. Like, it doesn't seem real. It's like very cool that we witnessed that, I think.
We did talk about this in an episode called Sussex Royal. If you want to go back and live through it all again with us. But it was just such a great way of marking his birthday. And the little interview she gave where she said, you know, I hope he enjoys his birthday, but a lot of other people don't get to have happy birthdays because of things that his dear friend Jeffrey Epstein did.
Yeah, it was so refreshing to hear people speaking so, like, boldly about royals like that without all the kind of airs and graces that you're so used to hearing applied to them.
Number 3 on my list of top 10 most memorable moments was the Tatler drama over the Catherine the Great cover story.
So good.
I can't believe this. This started in May.
I know, so long ago. I really have lost all sense of time.
Because it was the July-August issue of Tatler magazine. So I felt like it had happened more recently, but this has been going on for months and months. And as I'm sure you all know, Tatler ran this cover story about Kate. It was a profile of her and it talked about her family and how she was the kingmaker. But instantly when the story went online, I think before the print edition even came out, Kensington Palace denounced this article, released a statement claiming it contained a swathe of inaccuracies and false misrepresentations which were not put to Kensington Palace prior to publication. I loved that straight after that, though, Tatler issued a statement standing by its reporting.
So good. They said, Kensington Palace knew we were running the Catherine the Great cover months ago, and we asked them to work together on it. The fact that they are denying they ever knew is categorically false.
This was an astonishing moment. I would have never expected this from a publication like Tatler, which is usually so cozy with the royals. And, you know, as we were saying, this rolled on for months and months, and I didn't get bored of it, you know?
Yeah.
This back and forth, there was the Cambridges threatening legal action. We heard palace sources telling the Mail on Sunday that this piece was so cruel and so sexist to poor Kate. And then, like, the Tatler team not backing down, tweeting some shady stories about royal mistresses.
Yeah. Oh my God, that was amazing, wasn't it? Finally, then, when we got to September, there were a number of changes made to the online edition, which we talked about in more detail in the episodes In the Heat of the Tights and Accounting for Royal Dummies. The first change that they made was they kind of disappeared this paragraph that mentioned Rose Hanbury, Marchioness of Cholmondeley, who's, you know, Will's alleged mistress. But they got rid of her first.
Yeah, that was particularly curious. And then later they did a much more severe edit, and there was a whole bunch of stuff taken out. The line about Kate working as hard as a top CEO. I mean, that's printed on my brain. I'll never forget that. The line about her having a poster of Will on her wall when she was in school. All the stuff about Will being obsessed with Carol Middleton, that she was the mummy he always wanted.
That she had her hyacinth bouquet aspirations of grandeur, which I loved.
Yeah, and a lot of other stuff about Kate's family, the stuff about Carol as the masterminding force behind Kate and Pippa, and about Pippa speaking like the Queen. And then we were obviously devastated they took out all the stuff about the Cambridges visiting a medium.
Yeah, that was like the best bit of that piece for me, because I was like, this is something I've never heard of before, and it's like a whole scenario I've never placed the Cambridges into, even in my imagination.
It was very interesting to see the coverage of this in September, so many months later, when it was being described as Kate's victory.
Yeah.
A victory over the mean, snobbish Tatler, in reports that also had a little sidebar pulling out all of the bits that had been deleted. I thought that was like pretty like delicious.
It was so good, and it just really underlined that this was a massive backfire for the Cambridges if what they wanted was for nobody to say these things, because basically no one reads Tatler. Like, there's such a like
you've got 2 subscribers in this house.
I know, but you know, we are nobody. But you know, it's very much like a certain kind of type of person generally who makes up the most of the readership, right? Versus like a publication like the Daily Mail or the Mail on Sunday, which has massive readership, and they very helpfully, like you say, outline everything that the Cambridges don't want you to read in Tatler months after the pieces come out.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
One of the most exciting, if not the most exciting, royal gossip story of the year. Equally exciting, though, was in July, 2nd of July, Prince Andrew's good buddy, Ghislaine Maxwell, was finally arrested on charges of sex trafficking and perjury as part of the FBI's ongoing investigation into Jeffrey Epstein.
We talked about that in detail in an episode called Arresting Developments. It was very exciting because it was like months of looking for Ghislaine, and she was discovered in New Hampshire after she'd been hiding out there for months. But obviously with her arrest, it threw the spotlight back onto Prince Andrew.
I know, because the big moment for us was the press conference in New York following Ghislaine's arrest, when Audrey Strauss, the acting US attorney for the Southern District of New York, said in the press conference, "We would welcome Prince Andrew coming in to talk with us. We would like to have the benefit of his statement. I've no further comment beyond what I just said, which is that our doors remain open, as we previously said, and we would welcome him coming in and giving us an opportunity to hear his statement."
It's just incredible that he's been, you know, rightly so front and centre in the conversation around Ghislaine Maxwell and Epstein.
It was just wild to have him mentioned by name in a press conference about sex trafficking.
I know. I mean, this all fed into his, like, war of words with the US prosecutors and his team, like, insisting that he was cooperating, and then the US side saying, no, he's not. And we still don't have any, like, real movement on this, like, 6 months later.
Yeah. But, you know, this does mark 12 months of us pronouncing Ghislaine Maxwell properly, unlike in our early episodes.
R.I.P. Ghislaine. In a more positive York moment from the year, we had Beatrice's wedding back in July.
Yeah, just 2 weeks later, our 5th most memorable moment of the year, following... I felt like we spent most of the early part of the year speculating on when Princess Beatrice and Edo Mapelli Mozzi would get married, and the date being moved around and all of this like constant shifting. But then suddenly it was announced that they got married.
I know, it was mad because, like, I feel like the last thing we'd heard about that was, like, it's probably not going to happen until 2021, and it'll be, like, a lovely boost for everybody after coronavirus. So we were like, okay, we don't need to worry about the wedding for a while. And then suddenly, again, it was like, right, we need to record an episode right now because they've already got married. They got married on the 17th of July, and it was, like, a lockdown wedding ceremony that had to comply with a load of government guidelines on the number of attendees and all of this. And it seemed like possibly to make up for this, Beatrice got a lot of hand-me-downs from the Queen.
Yeah, it was so weird because we had also been trying to predict what her dress would look like. We were so fucking pumped to see her in something crazy. Yeah. And in the end, she did this Queen Elizabeth cosplay where she wore the same tiara that the Queen had worn on her own wedding day and one of the Queen's old dresses that she had customised. Not the most immaculate... customized.
No, they just like added a bit of satin around the bottom. It was, yeah.
And some poofy sleeves. But, you know, I think a lot of people found this very heartwarming, the Queen among them, I'm sure. And it seemed like it was a real show of support for Beatrice from the Queen after her father's, like, mess.
Yeah, and this, like, cursed union that, you know, was being delayed and delayed and delayed.
But I really felt like this day was all about the Queen rather than about Beatrice, and that it was designed to appease the Queen after her father humiliating the monarchy on the world stage.
I just thought that my main takeaway from this was, like, it was so weird to have a secret royal wedding, to have no, like, announcement of it coming up, and then suddenly it's like, oh, it's already happened.
And on top of that as well, I remember us talking at the time, I think it was Richard Kay who'd written a piece that, like, ultimately this day will be remembered as the disgrace of Prince Andrew, that he was shut out from his daughter's wedding portraits.
Absolutely. And I don't think that you can blame coronavirus for this wedding having been kept secret until after it was done. I think that that is much more likely to be to do with Andrew rather than the virus.
Yeah. Number 6 on the list. We're going forward to September. We found out that Prince Harry and Meghan had signed a huge deal with Netflix to deliver a whole range of projects, and there was an estimated, though not confirmed, signing on fee of between $50 and $100 million. But the big news for us was that Harry made the very smart move of immediately sending a fat check over to repay the cost of the renovations on Frogmore Cottage, plus a little bit more for rent.
Yeah, we talked about this in detail on the episode Pruning the Rose, and it was such a relief to us when he did this. Like, we had said, I think the week before when we'd reported that they'd done this deal, we were like, oh, he should send that check in the post, because then people
we never
will
want to
shut
hear
up about
about
this fucking money, the £2.4 million that every single critical piece of them brought up over and over again, as though they're the only royals who've ever had millions spent on property that they're never in.
Yeah. I just thought it was a real, I thought it was a boss move, Tom.
I absolutely agree. Like, it was a great, like, fuck you to all the people who were like, Harry and Meghan will never be able to get a job outside the royal family. They're just going to crash and burn. It's like, well, no, they've actually made, like, more money than you'll ever make in your entire life. And they'd be able to pay back this money. It was really shit, though, that they alone was singled out of all the royals to pay back this kind of money. Like, nobody else has been asked to. And, that is really fucked up. And I would have liked it more if this money had gone straight back to the government rather than back into the Queen's pocket.
Yes, I agree. But still, we cheered at that moment, for sure.
We also cheered a bit, although it didn't really go anywhere, in our 7th big moment of the year, which was all to do with Prince George's shark tooth. This was also in September, when everyone was very excited about this footage of the Cambridge kids meeting David Attenborough at Kensington Palace, and George got this fossilised shark tooth from him as a birthday gift.
But we soon learned this tooth, this Carcharocles megalodon tooth, which is believed to be 23 million years old, had been found in Malta in the 1960s by David Attenborough when he was on holiday there. But this revelation prompted Malta's culture minister, Jose Herrera, to say he would get the ball rolling on retrieving the tooth and returning it to Malta.
The Times of Malta reported that fossils fall under the definition of cultural heritage as movable or immovable object of geological importance. And so, in line with the provisions of the Cultural Heritage Act from 2002, their removal or excavation is nowadays expressly forbidden. So it wasn't, like, forbidden when David Attenborough stole the tooth. He was within his rights, I suppose, at the time. But right now, that would be very much frowned upon.
This was such a short-lived story, though, because later that same day, Herrera's spokesperson wrote back the comments and said that the matter would not be pursued any further.
Yeah.
Very anticlimactic.
It was like a fabulous few hours.
Yeah, even though it didn't go anywhere, though, it was a real reminder of the royal family's ability to hang on to stolen items that should have been restored to their rightful lands.
Yeah, like, see also the Koh-i-Noor diamond that we've talked about, and the Rosetta Stone, and the Parthenon marbles, and the Benin bronzes, like, everything that's in the British Museum, basically.
We talked about all this in the episode Dental Damnation. If you want to hear any more. Number 8 on our list of most memorable moments was Prince William's secret COVID.
Oh my God, this was incredible.
This just dropped like a bomb. Because
Yeah.
I remember when Prince Charles had coronavirus and we were very shocked. But it was nothing like this. This emerged in November when it was reported that Prince William had coronavirus back in late March, early April, the same time that Charles was publicly dealing with his own case of the virus, as was the Prime Minister Boris Johnson.
And it was really, for me, it was the fact that we only found out 6 months later that was so shocking. And I loved that it kind of quite rightly led to a lot of speculation from royal reporters as to whether we can ever trust the royals again.
Yeah, and it also really gave us an insight into how Prince William sees himself and his own capacity to send the nation into meltdown if they thought that he had coronavirus.
Yeah, I mean, at the time of Charles, like when we knew Charles was ill, we had been talking about how Will seemed to be like trying to make himself seem really strong versus his kind of weak dad with all his chest infections and everything. So when this did come out, my first thought was like, right, so Will wanted to protect his ego more than anything else. He wanted to be the strong man.
Yeah, but, you know, it was, in my view, a massive breach of trust and the implicit contract between the monarchy and the people. I think it really does show what an inflated sense of self-importance these people have.
Yeah.
That they think that lying to us is in our best interests to protect us from ourselves and our own mental crisis we would have.
And these people are, you know, you can't vote them out. They're just there. And with these views, you probably have to be pretty naive to be like genuinely surprised at the royals lying to you about this. And the shock here is like really that they got caught doing it, especially as they could have really avoided this. Like, it was very unnecessary. They could have got ahead of the story much earlier in the year. Like, once Will was feeling better, they could have announced that he had it, rather than it like emerging outside of their control.
Yeah, I do feel like this isn't going to have a lasting effect on his reputation or anything. Like, people talked about it for like a week. We talked about it pretty regularly since then, but I don't know if it will follow him around that he is Billy Liar.
Yeah, or Will Lie Am, which is what we called the episode that we discussed this in. Number 9 on our major moments from 2020 was Meghan's essay about her miscarriage, which happened last month. She shared this very powerful essay about grief and healing and revealing that she had suffered from a miscarriage earlier in the year.
We did talk about this very recently when the New York Times piece came out just a few weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
But it is worth reiterating how poignant the piece was and how brave Meghan was for speaking out, knowing what the potential fallout would be, and how meaningful her piece was for other people who have experienced baby loss. One thing that I was thinking, like, I know it's only been a short amount of time, but we spoke at the time about the muted response from the rest of the royal family. So we found that kind of surprising because we had expected some kind of cattiness from royal sources or whatever. But now I'm wondering, should the royals have been more vocal in their support for Meghan?
Yeah, I mean, I think they should have been. Like, all they did was issue this kind of quite icy statement that it was a deeply personal matter we would not comment on. But, like, Meghan had decided to share this publicly. She had decided it wasn't purely a personal matter, and she was making a lot of points that were relevant to a lot of people. This wasn't just about an isolated incident for her. And I think that the royals could have, you know, if they are interested in seeming up to date or modern, they should have taken this opportunity to really get on her side.
Yeah, and I think even seeing royal reporters, like I think it was Russell Myers at the Mirror, calling it a missed opportunity to mend the cracks between the families because, you know, given that Meghan's piece ended with this call for empathy, there was a distinct lack of empathy in the palace's statement about it, and shouldn't they have tried to show some themselves publicly for her?
Absolutely.
The final standout moment from 2020 for me was The Crown season 4 and the reaction from the palace, specifically from Prince Charles.
Yeah. So after the 4th season arrived on Netflix, we heard a lot about how angry the royals were about how they were portrayed. And there was a royal insider who was quoted saying, "This is drama and entertainment for commercial ends being made with no regard to the actual people involved who are having their lives hijacked and exploited. In this case, it's dragging up things that happened during very difficult times 25 or 30 years ago, without a thought for anyone's feelings. That isn't right or fair, particularly when so many of the things being depicted don't represent the truth." An unelected head of state isn't right or fair either.
This is so funny, though, because, you know, in previous seasons we have seen royal sources being a bit pissed off, and, you know, there was that event that Charles did with David Attenborough for his Netflix documentary, and he didn't want any stars from The Crown to attend and things like that. That was season 3, I think.
Yeah.
But it's clearly escalated a lot since then. And, you know, they didn't want to point out any specific examples from season 4 that they felt were untrue, but we did see Charles and Camilla's social team turning off replies to their tweets when they were spammed by trolls commenting Diana on their posts. But I did think it was very funny seeing how long this little war between Charles and Netflix rolled on after the show came out, because we saw, you know, I think it was in the weekend papers for the last month when you'd have royal insiders saying this is trolling with a Hollywood budget, as if that was the most savage little dig they could come up with.
Yeah.
And then they even roped in the UK Culture Secretary Oliver Dowden to call for a disclaimer to be added to say that this is fiction. It was total nonsense. We just talked about that last week when we were talking about Josh O'Connor and Helena Bonham Carter's differing responses to that. But there's just no way that this whole conversation would have got half as much traction if it wasn't for the palace really showing their their hand and how pissed off they were, how much it got to them about it.
And it was like a real deviation from their never complain, never explain kind of mindset.
If there's anything we've learned from this year, it's that is total bullshit.
Yeah.
Between the Tatler debacle and the Crown shit, like, never complain, never explain does not apply anymore to these people. I do think it remains to be seen what kind of impact the Crown will have on Charles and Camilla's reputations. Like, has it completely undone all of the PR work of the last 2 decades? I'm not so sure, but they certainly seem very nervous about it.
Yeah, I mean, and I really liked seeing them so nervous about it, but honestly, I can't see it making a huge amount of difference. I feel like already people have forgotten about it. Like, at the end of the day, the Diana stuff was known about, like, for years now. So, you know, much as it was like back in the conversation, it wasn't really a revelation.
What would be your kind of general impression or your takeaways from 2020 for the royals?
I mean, one is definitely what you were just saying, that like never complain, never explain is gone, and that these people are not above whining whenever they don't get their way. But I think the other thing that has really been a takeaway for me is that nothing sticks to these slimy bastards. You know, they always, like, you know, Will's reputation after secret COVID is going to go back to being absolutely fine and what it was. You know, Charles and Camilla will go back to being, like, if not loved, then tolerated.
I do think, though, there has been significant damage done to the monarchy as a result of the handling of Harry and Meghan's exit.
Yeah.
As a result of the ongoing fucking catastrophe that is Prince Andrew and Epstein. And as well as that, the Crown. Like, I know it hasn't had the kind of seismic consequences that Charles seemed to be worried that it would have. But I think all of those things together, added to the fact that we have seen so little of the royals this year, and when we have, the response hasn't always been positive. Like, obviously, I think a lot of people were super fucking into the Queen's speech that she gave on TV, her coronavirus message, but her first appearance at an engagement without a mask on, that wasn't well received, wasn't universally well received. As well as that, we just spoke about Prince William and Kate's royal train tour, which had quite divisive responses from people.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about that, and to do like a royal tour in the UK and to get anything other than glowing reviews should be considered a failure by the royals. Like, this is their home turf.
I think all of those things together really just highlight that the royals' influence in the UK, or certainly from my perspective, has lessened this year, and that they are on, you know, I wouldn't say shaky ground, but it's getting shakier.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, without Harry and Meghan, they like lost a huge demographic of young people and people of colour who like were not interested in the royals at all before, but a lot of Meghan's work like really captivated a lot of people, and obviously just her in herself as well.
I think even aside from people that are Meghan fans, young people or people of colour or women who didn't pay any attention to the royals and didn't even know what Meghan was doing, seeing how she was treated when she tried to leave, caught their eye, and alerted them to the problems in the royal family in a way that they weren't maybe aware of at all before, turning them from sort of passive participants in the monarchy to being a lot more skeptical of the role and purpose of a monarchy in 2020.
Yeah, and I think that's something that can sometimes be forgotten by like royal watchers outside of the UK, is that like in the UK, it's not like we all love or hate the royals. There's like a huge part of the country that doesn't think about them because like they've always been there. They're in the background. You feel like there's nothing you could really do to get rid of them if you did want to. So you just go about your daily business, and they really have very little effect on it other than the fact that they take your tax money. But, you know, you don't necessarily get a piece of paper breaking down where your tax goes. So, like you say, to be kind of actively woken up to be like, oh, these people are bad actors, then, you know, that could have some really harmful effects down the line. Yeah,
I think it'll be fascinating to see what kind of work they try to do next year, because we're already seeing with the train tour and with that big photo finish at Windsor Castle with the Queen and everyone, they are trying to turn things around. Or with the panto photo with the Cambridge kids, you know, there is a concerted PR push underway.
Yeah.
And that is going to accelerate next year, I think. But I thought we could make some predictions or talk about what we would like to see.
Yeah.
In 2021, I will start by talking about the Sussex review, this 1 year review that we've been hearing about constantly since March, that a year on from Harry and Meghan stepping back from the royal family, they will have their role reviewed. And I guess the door is open for them to come back. Fucking fat chance of that happening.
Yeah.
But I am very interested to see if they will be stripped of their titles, or what I would hope they would do is to hand them back.
Yeah. I think they've proved that they don't need them. And while I don't like that they have to do things that other members of the royal family don't have to do, I feel like it would be freeing for them, and they would, you know, suddenly have even more avenues open to them, and, you know, that chain that they're sort of being kept on would just be gone.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm interested to see what will happen with Meghan's trial.
Yeah, already it's been delayed, so it'll be late next year, but it'll be very interesting to see, does it go to a full trial, or she was seeking a summary judgment? So we'll have to see whether it goes to court. Will she have to face her father, Thomas Markle, in court? What is going to happen there?
If it was an episode of Suits, she would 100% be facing her father in court. I hope it doesn't go that far, and I hope that she wins and gets what she wants, because this whole situation has just been going on like so long for her.
Yeah, it's very drawn out. I'm hoping next year Harry and Meghan will finally return to Instagram.
Oh, yeah.
And we can just go back to the way things should be and stop having to hear that they wished Princess Eugenie happy birthday or whatever from People magazine.
Yeah. Like, when they can publish posts instead of issuing statements, I'll be really happy, I think.
I also think it would be of some benefit to offer more clarity on what the fuck Archewell is.
Yeah, people are really confused about it, I think. I certainly am.
This is not an invitation to send us a screed about what Archewell is, by the way.
What Archewell means to you.
We pay a lot of attention to this, and it seems like there are mixed messages from them saying we'll be launching it soon, and Archewell is already out there. It's everything they've been doing already. That's what Archewell is. So I think they could do with giving some more definition about that. I
am obviously going to be keeping tabs on what the hell is going to happen with Andrew next year. Like, will he finally cooperate with the FBI? Will we get more information from Ghislaine? Will she spill the beans?
More beans.
Even more beans. Because it just seems to be the gift that keeps on giving.
I know. I really hope this starts going somewhere.
Yeah, we've been getting a lot of like statements about things and things coming to light. But at the end of the day, Andrew is still sitting in Royal Lodge. He's not flying over to America to answer questions.
We had heard that Beatrice and Edo would have a second ceremony where she could wear her original dress that she had planned for the wedding. So I would really like to see the dress, if nothing else.
Yeah, that would be good. Because it was so disappointing after our like mad speculation on what she was going to wear.
And knowing that she had another dress in mind,
yeah,
but had to get stuck with this one. I would like that for her, and for her to be able to have a day that's less defined by her father and her grandmother.
Yeah.
And that's just about her and her husband and her unique sense of style.
And Wolfie. You can be there too. I want them to get rid of the royal train in 2021.
Yeah, I am intrigued to see what justification they will come up with for the continued existence of the royal train. If this was not enough of a success that they can say, let's do another royal train tour next year, what are they going to do to keep it on the tracks? I would also like to see some decisive action to put a cap on the sovereign grant.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think, we're heading into coronavirus and Brexit, amplified recession.
Yeah, it's going to be hell. And if I have to sit here watching them get more and more money every year, I'm going to be tearing my hair out.
I think, though, for the number one thing that we both want to see in 2021, we need to think a little bit bigger.
Yeah, something global.
Who will win the Earthshot Prize?
I cannot wait to find out.
We will be holding our breath for perhaps 8-9 months. But we hope you'll come back and join us in 2021 when Airheads will return. I would like to thank everybody for listening to us this year. We were so delighted to have something to do every week.
Yeah.
When lockdown made every week feel the same, at least we had this very stupid podcast.
I remember when we made that quiz. That was really fun as well.
Yeah, and some people even did it.
Yeah. And earlier this year, we were like absolutely delighted to be able to celebrate 50,000 downloads. And I just checked the other day and we're at over 75,000 downloads now. So thank you guys so much.
What a lovely Christmas present from our listeners to us. But yes, we will see you again in 2021. Hope you have a wonderful and very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Bye.
Bye.
So together with others, we set on a mission to do something special in the best Christmas tradition.